All right, let's talk about multi-cloud. It's a term that can sound super intimidating, right? Especially if you're running a startup or you're part of a small engineering team. It just brings to mind these images of massive complexity and costs that are just spiraling out of control. But what if there was a smarter way to approach it? A leaner way? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
So this is the big question, the one that keeps so many engineering leaders up at night. Is multi-cloud a brilliant, forward-thinking strategy, or is it a straight-up startup killer? I mean, on one hand, you're constantly hearing these horror stories about the dangers of vendor lock-in, but on the other hand, you are totally and rightfully terrified of the operational nightmare that comes with trying to manage two or more clouds. So what's the right call? And that right there, that's the classic startup cloud conundrum. It feels like you're caught between a rock and a hard place, you know? The fear of vendor lock-in is pushing you one way, towards using multiple clouds. But the fear of all that crippling complexity is pulling you right back. It just feels like a no-win situation, where you're just forced to pick your poison. But here's the thing. Today, we're going to completely reframe this entire problem. Okay, so let's try rethinking this whole strategy. The goal here isn't to just copy-paste everything you do across multiple clouds. Honestly, for a small team, that is a one-way ticket to chaos. Nope. The real goal is to build resilience, but to do it in a really targeted, super strategic way. And this right here, this is the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. It's about diversifying your risks, not duplicating your stack. The key is to change how you talk about it, and more importantly, how you think about it. Get the word redundancy out of your head and replace it with diversification. You really don't need two of everything. You just need to strategically place a few small bets in different places to protect your business if one of them has a really bad day. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Let's get a clear definition on the table. Lean multi-cloud is, well, it's like a surgical approach. You look at your system, you find the most fragile, the most business-critical parts, and then you use one specific service from another provider to back up just that one piece. The analogy I love is this. It's like adding some targeted insurance, not building a whole second house from the ground up. All right, so the theory sounds great, right? But you're probably thinking, how on earth do we actually do this with a team of like 5 engineers? That's fair. So let's get practical. Let's look at some super lightweight patterns that you could probably start implementing tomorrow. We're going to focus on 3 things. 3 high-impact, low-complexity patterns. And listen, these are not massive, scary architectural overhauls. Nope, they are simple, elegant solutions to very specific problems. We've got DNS failover, storage offload, and a backup for just one critical service. That's it. First up, DNS failover. This is probably the simplest, most effective pattern out there. Seriously. So instead of using the DNS that comes with your main cloud provider, you use a third-party one that doesn't care whose cloud you're on. Now, if your main provider has a massive outage, what happens? Well, with just a single click, you can redirect all your users to a simple, static, hey, we're down for maintenance page that's hosted somewhere else entirely. It's simple, it's fast, and it stops you from looking like you've just vanished off the face of the internet. Okay, pattern number 2, storage offload. Look, your data is the lifeblood of your business. We all know this. So why on earth would you keep your critical database backups in the same cloud or even the same data center as your primary database? That's kind of like keeping your spare key under your doormat. By shipping those backups to a totally separate and often way cheaper storage provider, you're insulating your most precious asset from any kind of failure in your main system. And last but not least, the critical service backup. Now this one takes a little bit more thought. You got to get your team together and ask this one simple question. What is the one thing that if it breaks, we are completely toast? Our business just stops, you know? Maybe it's user logins, or maybe it's processing payments. Whatever it is, the idea here is to have a simple standby version of just that one service ready to fire up on a secondary provider. Again, you are not replicating your whole app, just the one piece you absolutely positively cannot live without. Okay, so we've talked about these patterns in the abstract. Let's make this real. Let's put it all together and see what a real-world, lean multi-cloud stack might actually look like. So check this out. Your core application, your compute servers, your main database, that all lives happily on your primary provider. Let's say it's AWS for this example. Notice we're not touching that heavy-duty stuff. But for DNS, we're using something like Cloudflare as a separate control layer, just for failover. And for our critical backups, our object storage,
we're sending those off to a specialized, super low-cost provider like Backblaze B2. See how surgical that is? All the heavy lifting stays in one place, and we're just adding resilience right at the edges where it counts.
All right, now this next part is honestly, it's just as important as everything we've just talked about. For a small team, knowing what not to do is probably the most important key to staying lean and actually getting stuff done. So here it is. This is your do not do this yet list, okay? Do not try to replicate your entire database in real time across 2 different clouds. Just don't. Do not try to run an active-active setup where your app is being served from 2 providers at the same time. And for the love of all that is holy, please do not try to build your own custom, cloud-agnostic abstraction layer. These are big, enterprise-grade patterns for huge teams with massive budgets. For a startup, they're a distraction, and honestly, they're a productivity death trap.
So here's the bottom line. If you take away just one thing from all this, let it be this simple idea. Start small. Don't try to boil the ocean. Find your single biggest point of failure, the one that keeps you up at night, and just apply one of these lean patterns to that one problem. Solve that first, that's it.
And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. I want you to take this question back to your team. Forget the buzzword multi-cloud for a second. Just ask yourselves this. What is the one point of failure that our business absolutely cannot survive? Find the answer to that question, and you've found your starting point for building a lean, a pragmatic, and a really powerful resilience strategy.